been a rough day.
Hey guys, it's Saturday. I just edited day 14. Well, started to edit day 14, so we're on day 15. I'm headed to the shop. Sorry, my lights are flashing. Headed to the shop. Andy's already there. He came and picked up the keys from me this morning, and he's working on laying out the electrical and doing some other stuff. I just got done the basketball game, so I'm gonna head over to the shop and see what's going on. If you guys could do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button for me, hit the subscribe button to keep up to date. I do all kinds of different projects. If you're new here, I do some client stuff, I do community work, and I do Jeep stuff and race car stuff now. So anyway, hit the subscribe button if you like what I got going on. I really appreciate you guys being here. But anyway, talk at you later. Take care. Holy be Jesus. Alright, so what in the hell is going on here? Oh yeah, sorry Nick, it didn't work out. Okay, so where are we at? What happened? Nothing works. We dropped back 10. And we punted. So we took the K-member out. The reason we took the K-member out is so that it would be easier to get the motor in and out, because we've taken the motor in and out about 4 times now. First problem that we had was the bell housing was rubbing here and rubbing here. Andy thought that, so there's a company, and I'll have to, Andy, I'm sure will comment when this video comes out, but there's a company and a kit that cuts some of these transmission mounts out and moves this over to give more clearance for the VQ transmission. And Andy didn't think that he was going to have to go through that because he had this transmission in before, but an oversight was that tranny is actually about 3 inches further back now than it was before, and now because that transmission is back another 2 or 3 inches, it rubs on everything, and we can't get it into position. We couldn't get the transmission cross member into position. Just flat out nothing was working, so we had to pull the motor back out. Rather than wait on ordering a kit, I devised a plan to make us some more room in here for the tranny to fit. So I'm in the process of cutting all this out. I'm not really cutting it, but I'm cutting it here like I did on this side, and I walked this over and overlapped it, and then I'm going to trim this up and weld it along the seam and re-weld this. I'm going to do the same thing over here, but what we found is because of the previous floor work, this never got finished up, so this is actually loose here, and so I'm going to finish boxing it in and maybe tie this corner in or do what I can, because I can't even flatten this out. That's how loose everything is. So I'm going to get this flattened out like this side and weld all this up, pretty it all up. I've massaged these pretty well now. And then I'm actually going to take and I'm going to grind the casting nubs off of the side of the transmission. Let me crawl out here real quick and show you. Actually, Andy's gone. I might want to do this while he's gone so he's not looking. These are the casting marks that I was talking about. So these casting marks right here are rubbing pretty bad. This one especially, and that one. So I'm going to smooth those off on that side to give us a little bit more room there. I don't think I'm going to take anything off of this just because that might be a shaft in here or something. I don't know what's in here, so I'm not going to take any off of that. That one's furthest out. I think I'm okay there, and I could probably just take a little bit off of that one, but I don't think I need to on that one. So anyway, I'm going to smooth this up, and I'm going to finish this crap under here and get that moved over. I didn't really do much filming today. We're still on day 14. I didn't do any filming up to this point, so anyway, sometimes when you build customs it's a struggle, and we've been struggling, there's no doubt about it. So Andy's on a parts run to get some wire crimps for his zero gauge wire. He's gonna finish up the fuse box, starter wiring, and start getting the firewall pass-throughs worked on. I'm gonna finish grinding on these pieces and then get them into position, get this other piece boxed in, and we should be able to put this motor back in there. I'm gonna have to modify. I already cut this one apart. The reason I did so is because it needed to move, and so we were gonna use this one. And so I got it ready to mock up. The only thing that I needed to do was now shorten these legs. These legs were the ones that were out here, or like that rather. So I'm just gonna shorten this up and then re-weld it all the way around. We've got this other one over here that's already like I need it, so I'm just gonna take this and put it on the back, and that should be good to go. Sorry about this, Nick. It didn't work out. We were gonna modify and save it, and now to save time, we're gonna scrap it. So apologies, brother. That's how shit goes. Anyway, we're still trudging along. Andy went to get some food. I'm gonna get this done and get it prepped for a motor, see if we can throw some shit back together. But man, tired. It's been a long couple weeks. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you liking, watching, following. We'll talk at you soon. Take care. I'll get my light real quick and I'll go over a couple of things. So we ended up having to play with these motor mounts a whole bunch because of the relationship between the firewall and the steering shaft. We ended up modifying the steering shaft. Let's see if I can get in here to show you. So that shaft is now got the upper hardware cut off of it and then put back onto it and then welded back together. It's not welded to the shaft right now. We have the clearance that we need now. What was happening is that bolt, that hardware that was sticking out on the top portion of it, was rubbing on the headers no matter where the motor landed. And we adjusted the motor several times, we adjusted the motor mount several times, but really in the end it ended up landing right back to where it was. So after beating our heads on the wall for a few hours, I decided that the best route to fix that was going to be to modify that steering knuckle, that U-joint area. The steering shaft, there's the top of it. You can see how tight it is. The only way that we can really get any more out of it is to go back further with the motor, which we really can't, or to go down, which we can't either. I mean, it is where it is. So I did that. The next problem that we had is we couldn't get Let's see, I'll crawl underneath the car. We couldn't get the transmission up high enough. You can see where I modified right here and I cut it out. I'm going to pretty it up a little bit more, but anyway, this transmission is further back than what the T56 is. So Andy had this transmission in before and didn't think that it was going to be an issue, but lo and behold, let me get underneath here and see if I can show you now. So we're looking at the bottom of the transmission. So up here, up in here, we were hitting all over the place. We were hitting in here, and we were hitting up here on the bell housing, and we were hitting back here. So there's a kit out there on the market that taken these transmission mounting plates, they cut part of it out and then move that over to allow this transmission to go up high enough, even for the T56 to go up high enough. I didn't know that at the time that I did this, and this one's been modified on the floor as well. So after a few more hours of thinking and trying to figure out what I was going to do, I took the motor and tranny out, and Andy's got some pictures of it on the Facebook page if you guys want to look that up. But anyway, I took and I cut this transmission mount on the body side like this, straight across, and then I pie cut it up in the front, and then I walked it over and re-welded it all back up, and then I added in. So because this floor has all been modified from factory to get the seat to fit in here, that transmission mount wasn't tied to the structure that they had added in for the floor. So I gusseted underneath the transmission mount on the driver's side with this piece of angle iron to tie it back to the structure of the floor, because once I pulled the transmission mount off, I could move that whole area with my hand, and this is going to get a lot of torque and force now that this got this LS3 in it. So I wanted to do what I could for the moment. I'm going to try and get this to look a little bit better later on, but for this season and for right now to go to the fabricator, this is going to be okay. It's a lot better than what it was. So here's the transmission cross member. So I got the light, trying to keep everything. So this bracket here was originally on the back side of the cross member itself, and yeah, it was on the other side of the cross member itself, and these holes I moved. So what I did is I moved the whole U back. I trimmed off the front because it would have been sticking off up here. So I trimmed off that front tab, rounded all these up, made new mounting holes in the bracket. I kept the horseshoe in the mounting bracket, and then I cut this part of it off from this side, and I moved it to the other side and welded it all the way around. So now it's on there, it's solid, the transmission's in. It can't go forward or back any more than what it is already, so it is where it is. I took, when I welded this and tacked it into place, I bolted the horseshoe to the floor first and then jacked the transmission up as high as I could get it. I trimmed that out up there in the tranny tunnel. I trimmed it out so it would go up, and got the transmission up as high as I could get it, and then tacked the cross member and pulled the cross member out, welded the cross member fully, painted it, and then reinstalled it. So that's that. We still got good header clearance for the exhaust, not really for the frame rails, but I'll go over that here in just a second. But we'll still be able to run our exhaust back pretty easily. So that's all good and happy. There's the drive line. It's all good, torqued in, ready to go. I'll take my light with me. I got the motor in place, I got the transmission installed, got the motor where it's going to sit. That steering shaft is skipping a little bit when you steer the steering wheel, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull the column back out of the car, and well, before I pull the column out, let me back up. So we're going to put the hardware in the rack and pinion side of that steering joint, the U-joint, get it in place. Then I'm going to reach down and I'm going to tack the upper side of it. I'm going to tack weld it to the steering column shaft. Then we'll go ahead and take the hardware out, pull the steering column all the way back out of the car, and I'm going to fully weld that to the steering column shaft so that it's not skipping or we don't have a worry there, just for peace of mind. If we need to pull it apart, we'll just pull the 10 millimeters or 12s out of the steering column and pull that off the firewall. That'll be an easy thing to do. So we overcame that. Got back together the next day and started laying out wiring. The fuel injection kit that we're using is a FI Tech fuel injection kit, and so it's a standalone unit here for the engine compartment, and then it has a another standalone unit back here inside the car. And so really the only wires that we needed to run from the front of the car to in here in the cabin were the light wires, and we're just going to run lights, turn signals, marker lights in the back, and headlights. So there wasn't much as far as that goes. As far as connecting the two ECUs together, there is a small pigtail here. It's just got these little plugs. So that had to be ran through the cabin. We also had to run the tack wire, and the electronic fuel pump is going to be controlled via the switch panel. For now, we may use the ECM to control the water pump, but for right now I think Andy's going to do it off of the switch panel. So we ran those wires in through the door jamb bundle, up here across, and then right here is our fender line, so when you look down this way you won't really see that wire, and then it runs down underneath and goes tight inside the wheel well along the back side of the wheel well. Then our light wires come out and across. This is marker lights. That's a loop to the other side. This is our turn signal wire. We're going to chassis ground all this stuff, and then I have the water pump wiring, and then I have the tack signal wiring, and the ECM relay wiring. Everything else is here for the engine wiring. So we ran this down along the frame rail, and we're going to take care of this magenta stuff and put some black on there. We got some more loom to do, but we ran the main harness back along the back, and then GM always runs most of their harness wiring on the back side of the bell housing, so that's where we ran it on this one. So it's all nice and kind of tucked back here. All of the front end stuff for the throttle body is all up here, and that's all hidden under the intake. Our alternator wiring comes over right out of the bottom of the intake, and then we have a remote bleeder for the clutch, and we're going to run that over here on the other side on the firewall. So as far as wiring is concerned, it wasn't really too much of an ordeal. It didn't take too long. Me and Andy were able to take care of the most of it in about an hour and a half, and get the whole car pre-wired. And then we just pulled the harness out, and he took it up and pinned and labeled it, and then brought it back down. It's most of the way laid in place and zip tied kind of where we want it. So then we're going to go through and loom it all up and chassis ground it and secure it and get it all done. We're real close to sending it to the fabricator, up to Crystal Fab. So we're trying to get the motor buttoned up and running before it goes up to the fabricator. So we got all the wiring installed and in. I had to send the drive shaft off to Northwest Toys LLC. Buddy of mine runs that company. He's a Toyota importer, and he sure hooked me up big and took care of the drive shaft. We needed to take 1.5 inches off of it, and it was aluminum tube, 3 3/4 inch, big shaft. And he was able to turn it around for me in a couple of days and get it back. So I got that installed today, and the driveline hoop put back on, the factory one. So one of the things we talked about doing was making sure the hood opened vertical. So I modified those hood hinges today, and I've got the hood bolted in place now. Cut that, and insert pictures. So now I got the intake set in place, and I took one fitting off of the top of the intake right here because it was hitting first. So I'm looking at trying to modify this hood. Modify this hood a little bit. So my next projects are going to be modifying the hood, getting the front clip put on, and I'm going to see if I can get these ducts off the side of the car, because I know that's going to motivate Crystal Fab a little bit. And I want to see if I can get my valve covers and shoot, mind blank, sorry, coil brackets painted this week and reinstalled. My stencils won't be here for the intake until Saturday, so I might be able to do that on Saturday and get the intake finished up, get the hood bolted in place. Need to paint the hinges, get the fenders on, and hopefully Andy comes down and tunes this thing this weekend. I want to hear it run. Oh, the other thing that we did